Hi, everyone. My name is Dustin Miles. I'm with Momentum Multifamily, and today we have Diana Lynn with us, and super excited to have her. And Diana, if you would just quickly introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into the interview.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Dustin. My name is Diana Lynn, and my husband and I, we run a company called Navi Ventures. We've been investing in multifamily since 2018, and when we got started, it was mostly passively investing. And in 2021 is when we started to sponsor deals. And since then, we've acquired about three different properties, currently working on one active one in New Mexico. Our market is focused in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Prior to making my switch to focusing on multifamily investing, I was a practicing architect. So I worked as an architect for about good 10 years. Right after graduation, went straight to China. I was in Beijing for 2 years
Oh, wow.
and then came back to Texas, my home state, to get my license as an architect and learn. I was able to design, large from a huge scale, from like a skyscraper, about 70-story, multifamily hotel tower in Chengdu, China, all the way to like single family homes. So my
Wow.
scale kind
Okay.
of varies as an architect, but you know, I realized as an architect that is only so much I can do and so much time I have. So, which, like many others, got attracted to real estate investing, and multifamily was the one that made sense to us. So that's
Hmm.
how we transitioned over.
Wow. That's yeah, lot going on there. That's cool.
Yeah.
uh, curious, and maybe I just missed it, but I know where you're located. But yeah, if you want to let people know where you're located. Sure.
Yeah, sorry to mention it, but I'm based in Dallas, Texas. So
Okay.
I've been here since 2014, but born and raised in Houston, Texas,
Okay.
and uh, ever since I graduated high school in a good old town called Sugarland, Texas.
Mm, yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with that market,
Yep.
but I lived in New York for a couple years and then did a half-year study in Rome. And as I mentioned before, went to China right after graduation in the midst of recession, right? So
Wow.
China had the most amount of work for architects then, so China made sense to us. But yeah, right now in Dallas.
Wow. Okay. Well traveled.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So kind of curious, what's your role is, what's your role as a GP been like, and what do you like to do? I know, I started a while back, and I've worn all the hats and all that, and there's definitely some. I would like, I like chasing deals, and I do like the asset management also quite a bit too. But and then I don't know, like talking to investors too. But yeah, just curious if you have, kind of what your role typically is, or if that's changed, and then
Mhm.
what do you like to do?
Yeah. So the type of deals that we sponsored, it kind of varies from project to project. So, when we first sponsored our first deal, my husband and I, we tried to bring in value to what
Mm.
we know, right? So, like for me, it was an architect, and for my husband, he's a real estate attorney. So we're
Oh,
able to bring some sort of perspective into the team, but still learning how to. We partner with someone that knew what they're doing, so we try to bring value to what we can. So when I first got started as a GP, really what I found that I was valuable at was asset managing, right?
mm,
So asset managing, back then I didn't know what it means, but now I know what it really is. It's kind of really hardcore project management, right?
yep,
And so
yeah,
I've been doing that the whole time as an architect, right? So it was easily transferable skill set. And so I like the asset managing part because I'm comfortable. I know how to do it. One part I was being challenged is the that I found challenging because I never done it before is to raise capital, right?
mm,
So it was a new skill set I had to develop, and still I am learning how to do it really. But uh, I don't think that's my strength, but it really is the asset managing. And more I became, more years I got gained, it was a general partner, the more I developed some soft skills of more investor relation, right?
Mm.
So, and also people interface. So like talking to brokers and talking to investors, right, and talking to vendors in general, right. So the deal chasing and then the investor relation, it started to come natural to me, and so I like the asset managing, I like the investor relation, but what
Mm.
I don't have the I guess strength is really the underwriting. So that's where my
Mm.
husband comes in. He's the underwriter of for our company, right?
Oh, gotcha.
So we can each kind of bring our own strength, and he still likes the
Mm.
underwriting portion, and he's a little better now on the investor relation, but still needs some work. but but yeah, so each deal we kind of have a different skill set to bring. But now I still say now that I still like the asset managing portion because there's some control I have because of the skill set I can bring to the table.
Yeah. Well, and then when you get loan docs or you get PPM docs, just toss them over to your husband.
Yeah,
So, so
exactly.
that's
Anything
fun.
related to legal and accounting, and just toss it over.
There you go. Yeah, perfect.
Mhm.
Well, cool. One thing that, and I know, I have a feeling what it might be, but kind of curious. There's a lot of options for people whenever they're, whenever they're investing, or even if you're an LP and you go to a few conferences, go to a few meetups, like you meet a number of syndicators pretty quickly, and especially if you're in Dallas.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And so, anyways, there's lots of options. There's the stock market. There's crypto. They can go buy single family, although that's pretty challenging right now too. But curious if there's anything that kind of sets you guys apart from however whichever direction you kind of want to take it in. But yeah, just kind of curious what that
Right.
looks like for
Yeah.
you guys.
So, I mean, when we started sponsoring deals, you know, both my husband and I, we did come from a real estate background, right? So I already had years of experience as an architect, and my husband years experience as an attorney, right?
Yep.
So, it wasn't like we came in from a completely different background to into real estate. It kind of came naturally to us. And so when we started to get a little bit more into real estate investing, it wasn't too difficult to have people sort of come on board to invest with us
Mm.
because of our years of experience that we have exposure into the real estate industry. And also, when people get to know us pretty well, they see that we have really strong work ethics, right?
Mm.
And so the work ethics is really in the details, right?
Yep.
So we tend to be pretty detail oriented and pretty gung ho about it. So even if there's a small detail that many people would glaze over, we would latch onto it and make sure that's resolved before we move on, right? So it's still a little balanced because once you kind of focus too much on detail, you don't look at the big picture, right? So um, a lot of times I'm more the big picture thinker, and my husband is
Mm.
more of the detail guy, right? But what a lot of people are attracted to kind of come invest with us is that they know that because we're so detail oriented and we're so trustworthy that it was easy to be convinced to invest with us, right? So I think it is a combination of trust, right, as well as kind of the past experience we have in my previous lives as an investor, right, before that as an investor.
Yeah, I never thought about that. But yeah, just given your real estate background, and then yeah, I can see people automatically, kind of trusting, I don't know, at least in my mind, if I guess if it's an attorney or a doctor, I kind of, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, at least in my head, there's a certain level of trust there. Maybe it's, because they have to get licenses and things
Right,
like
because
that.
it takes a while to kind of get to that position. You need to really
Yeah.
sort of be focused and get that
Yeah.
sort of certification.
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So there's a level of respect already for those type of profession because it's not easy, right?
Right.
Then why
Right.
not?
Right.
If it is easy, everyone would do it, right?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I know. So my background's in engineering, and so and it was I worked I worked for a defense contractor and all that, and so I remember getting. I guess I never thought about you guys were real estate kind of along those lines, and then I went went to school for engineering, but I was working for a defense contractor, and so I would always get lots of questions of where how did you make that switch? What did that look like? And
Yeah,
you're doing real estate? What?
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
So
I mean,
it
we still got that question too, right? Because,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
they know us as architect, attorney, not as an investor. So, once you start sponsoring deals, then you sort of need a, it takes a while to get them sort of convinced, I guess, to
yeah, yeah.
like, hmm
That's cool.
yeah,
So I've gotten, and you've probably gotten, as you've kind of gotten into the capital raise side and all that. I'm sure you've gotten some, interesting LP questions. One thing that so I was trying to, so the question is, what do what should LPs be asking you about, a deal, and however however you kind of want to take that, but definitely have gotten lots of interesting questions from LPs, and then and you can kind of tell depending on some of the questions, how new or green or how seasoned they are. So,
yeah.
but anyways, just kind of curious, if there's you think that there's something that's particularly important for an LP to be asking you about, any of your deals that you guys have done.
Yeah, so that's a great question because, literally this morning I was talking to a potential LP, right? And
Mm.
so she asked me the same question. Is like, what kind of questions do I need to ask,
Yeah.
right? Because she
Yep.
never invested in multifamily or real estate before,
Yep.
because she's going through some pre-qualification for a home that she wants to potentially
Mm.
buy as an investment home. And she's like, yeah, they looked at me for credit score and get all that stuff to make sure that the bank make sure that they're lending to the right candidate, right? So same thing, for us. But I told her, yeah, when you are vetting for deals as an LP to a GP, or at least to a multifamily deal, you can't. It's not typical to ask for the credit score, right? Like,
Right. Right. Right.
because there's only so much that can give you the paint the
Yeah.
picture. So I tell her first is like, first look at their track record, right? Number two, do you trust them, right? That
Mhm.
to me is number one, right?
Mhm.
And ask for referrals, right?
Yep.
Um, and has their past deals gone full cycle? And if so, what are the results from your projections to actual results, right? So asking all these questions are important to paint the whole picture, and knowing that there's in the end still inherent risk to investing in any deal. But when you do
Yep.
these due diligence and ask them a series of questions, you're able to sort of mitigate those risks when
Mhm.
you're able to paint the whole picture, right?
Yep.
So there's many ways to sort of vet a deal, vetting the sponsor, vetting the actual deal itself, the numbers, the location, right? The viability, whether the numbers are realistic, the comps, right? So there's a whole series of questions to ask. And so it's probably too much to list even like, during this
Right.
conversation. But that's what I would tell an LP is that, that's the type of stuff you want to ask. Even if you're looking at investing with me, you should ask me these questions.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'll get not all the time, but there's I think it's the newer folks that tend to ask like, what should I be asking you?
Yeah.
I'm not really
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so that you would gain their trust more if you tell them this is what you should be asking me, right?
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
you should ask hard questions and ask other sponsors too, right? Look at other deals to see if it's is for you because my deal may not work for you, right?
Yep.
It might
Yep.
you might be more tolerant for the type of risk profile in another deal, right? Because what you want to tell them is that what you want best for them, not for me, right?
Right.
So you want to make sure that they're comfortable in investing in your deal. but not trying to outright sell them on your deal and your deal only, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're kind of protecting their interests.
Yep. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I know one question I've gotten a few times is, what, like, okay, what's the downside? And so
The
kind of lay that out too. So,
downside
just
is you'll lose all your money. Like
good.
that's the
Yeah.
ultimate
That's,
downside. But I
that's,
mean, there's ways to mitigate it. Yeah.
yep. 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 For sure.
Hmm.
So I'm sure there's so things that you like a lot about multifamily, things that maybe not so thrilled about. I know I kind of have, we're doing we're in the knee high up in tax returns and K1s and all
Oh,
that, and
fun
that
stuff.
not I have, the good thing is I like it when I do my personal taxes. So I do like, because I like the K1s, I like the appreciation and all that, but then putting all that together, not, probably not most fun thing, at least for me, in the world. But
Right. Right.
so anyways, yeah, just kind of curious if there's some things about multifamily you really, really like,
Yeah.
and then if there is anything that maybe not as much. So
Yeah, I mean, it depends whether you're an LP or you're a GP, right? So as an
hmm
LP, what's great about investing is that you don't do anything besides the vetting part, right?
sure, yeah,
So that's how we got started in investing. We were LPs in a couple syndication deal, and so we just kind of parked our money after doing some analysis and due diligence, and invested, and just hope that it does well. And
yeah,
so we were able to continue our full time job at that point.
mm,
And when some of the deals actually went full cycle and that did pretty well, then we're like, oh, that's pretty cool, right?
mm,
Um, Obviously, as the downside as LP is that when a deal does go south, then you can't do anything about it because you get
right,
that's the risk, right? So
hmm
you can't come in and kick. I mean, you probably can depending on the SEC documents, but like most of the times you can't just take over. There's a long process to kick the GP out in order to make sure that this failing property doesn't go further south.
yep,
That's downside as LP. But as a GP, what's great about being a GP is the fact I enjoy the part of the team
mm,
making part, finding the right team members, finding the right lender, the property manager, right? Finding the right insurance agent, finding the right best quote. You want the right team members to make sure that this property is successful, as well as partners that you do partner with on a deal. So that part I enjoy just because I like to interface more with people and make sure that we're going toward the right goal. Downside is, the I guess the downside of even just teamwork, right? There may be some bad actors or someone that doesn't do their legwork. So that part you would have to kind of address, but we have to sort of make sure that especially for partners, that you date them long enough to,
hmm
before you go into a 5-year marriage, right?
yep,
So, there's a downside on even partnering with people that you just know personally, but working with them is a completely different experience.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's I like what you said. It's, you mentioned marriage, so it's a long term. You're at least tied to the hip, with people for at least a few years. Could be 5,
Hmm.
could be 10. So it just kind of depends on the deal, depends on the market and the game plan, all that. So, but
Right.
so yeah, definitely good
Yes.
to know who you're working with for
Yeah,
sure.
be extremely picky about
Yeah.
who you partner with, right?
hmm
Just because you had one or two coffee with them doesn't mean they're the right partner. so,
Right, 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 right. Yeah,
so that's kind of my takeaway, right?
yeah,
So I would recommend anyone who's going to look into being a GP is be super selective and don't rush into a marriage,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've had some people. I'm sure you have too. I've had people where I honestly I don't even know their last name, and they're like, "Hey, you want to partner up?" I'm like, who are you? I
You're
don't.
my deal.
Where do you live? I don't know who you are. So, anyways, but rushing that process a little much. So,
Right.
but anyways, so are you? So I was in a few mentoring programs. I'm not in a mentoring program, per se for multifamily. I'm in a few masterminds, but are did you kind of get going in a mentoring program, or just kind of network and kind of figure it out, or what's
Yeah,
your journey?
I, been doing this for a couple of years and a big advocate of mentoring programs.
Mm.
It's kind of what got us started, honestly, is when we started to learn how to passively invest in deals, we joined the Sunrock
Mhm.
Foundation group, right? So that tier of membership is just to get exposed to the whole process and network with other sponsors so we can invest in other sponsors' deals. So, but because of that, we got access to the network and we also got access to the resources and helped us accelerate our exposure into
Yep.
real estate, multifamily investing, especially. And then when we were ready to sort of sponsor a deal, we joined another mentoring program.
Mm.
And that sort of got us jump started into sponsoring deals, right?
Mm.
And then currently I'm in a new mastermind, right? And that's focused onto multifamily ground up development, right?
Oh,
Because that's kind of ultimately my interest lies in development because my background as an
yeah.
architect, right? I'm like,
Right.
I want to build.
Yeah. Natural fits there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's an extremely risky uh, I guess, side of real estate because you're just kind of in the negative for 2 years until you can see
Right.
some
Yeah.
profit, as opposed to value add where you close on day one, you'll cash flow, hopefully, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep. Yep.
multifamily development, not so much. There's you can put in 300, $400,000 of pre-development money into the deal, and you may not see it at the end because the city decided not to give you any sort of entitlement, right,
Mhm.
or permit. So there's a lot of risk to it. So that's why we got into multifamily value add first, because it's less risky. And then
Right.
so now I have a little bit more appetite for multifamily development. So we joined a mastermind for multifamily development. And yeah, we're working on a new one right now in New Mexico.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um, so switching gears a little bit here. So, do you have any favorite books or podcast? And then I'm really interested if there's any podcast episodes or any books that you've read or listened to more than once.
That's a great question because I listen to podcasts whenever I get some time in between kids.
Right,
So
right,
I have
right.
2 kids. I got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Yep.
So reading books for leisure has kind of like been a long past like hobby.
Yeah. Well, full
But
discipline. Yep.
yeah, whenever I do have time, I do like to listen to Old Capital podcasts. That's pretty
Mm,
good content there.
yeah.
Real estate guys, I enjoy listening to them. But in terms of reading books, like the last one I audio listened to because that's the time that I had
Hmm.
is the Go Giver book,
Oh,
with
yeah.
Bob Berg. That
Art
was
Bird.
really
Hmm.
good, and so I've been able to kind of implement that, and already kind of seeing the results, and so that was a pretty good book. But I do have a stack of books that lots of people recommend me to look at. It's like once
Yeah.
my kids are kind of a little bit more independent, I'll kind of start chopping away in those books.
That's cool. Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I had posted something about books on LinkedIn actually, and someone had mentioned Bob Berg, Go Giver, and then Bob like replied below his comment and was like, "Thank you so much," blah blah blah. And then I haven't talked to Bob, but connected. We're a connection now on LinkedIn, so I thought that was cool that he
Uh-huh.
was just active on LinkedIn. I didn't realize he was. So,
Yeah, I know.
anyway,
I've seen him here and there. It's like, oh,
yeah,
cool. He's
yeah,
there.
yeah. I'm like, hey, there you go.
Giving back.
um, well, cool. And then kind of we're towards the beginning of the year. A lot of people are still in their goals, or maybe the gyms are starting to clear out more. I don't know. It depends on how you are, but yeah, kind of curious to where you kind of see yourself the next few years, and kind of what what your business might look like in a few years.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm hoping that in a couple years, right, that we get some more real estate into our portfolio where we have sufficient cash flow to kind of eventually retire my husband, right? So I'm
Mm.
full time into real estate, laying the groundworks, and then doing all the work that's needed to be done to keep these properties alive and profitable,
Hmm.
while he is working part time at his law firm. So that's kind of what's keeping the roof over our head. But
Yeah.
we want to be able to get enough real estate portfolio where we will eventually have him leave his job so we can spend more time with our kids, right?
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah.
even for this development that we're working on, that one is going to be, we're going to hold on to that property, right? And that's going to be cash flow for us. So if we were able to develop or acquire more multifamily projects that eventually we make sufficient amount of cash flow to just lay back and kick back and relax. And, the dream is to travel.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Well, I'm glad I was working part-time too before I kind of stepped out, so it's nice he has that flexibility there.
Right.
Um, well, one kind of last question. So any advice for, you were an LP and then you became a GP, any advice for someone that's looking to be a GP and just anything that they should look to do?
Yeah, I mean, for those that want to be a GP, even my path is pretty good transition. Just being an LP, then becoming a GP. But even
Hmm.
as an LP, if you're impatient and want to go straight to be a GP, then by all means, start being a GP. But just make sure that you're partnering with someone that is an experienced general partner, right?
Yep.
When you're just starting off new, you're not going to know anything. You do want to educate yourself, make sure that you're knowledgeable, but then you don't really know what you're doing with all the books that you've consumed until
Mhm.
you actually do it. But
Yep.
when you actually do it with someone that also knows what they're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ideally,
Yeah.
someone with like two or three projects that have gone full cycle, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would definitely recommend, either being an LP or just partnering with someone as a GP, but making sure that you are partnering with the right person that is trustworthy, right?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I believe in that Jim Rohn quote: "You're the average of the five people you hang around." And so, if
Yes,
you're wanting to get good at whatever it is, swimming,
yes,
go hang out with swimmers.
yes.
Real estate, go hang out with
Yes,
real estate
which is
people.
exactly why mentoring programs are pretty great too, because there's
Yep.
already a bunch of them that are experienced to help you out, right? And
Hmm.
so you start to hang out with the other successful sponsors that you'll be able to absorb some of the information from being around those type of people, then implement it to yourself, or eventually get to know them well enough to be able to partner on a deal,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
right?
It's not
Hmm.
yeah, it's not rocket science. So.
No, it's not.
Um, well, cool. How do people get in touch with you? Do you have website, email, whatever you would like to share with everyone so they can get in touch with you?
Yeah. My email is good. It's Diana at Navi-Ventures.com. I'm also active on LinkedIn, so just follow me on with Diana Lynn. I think it's 01 at the end of my name for the
Mm.
username. And then I'm also on Instagram, Navi_Ventures_RE. And yeah, like you just get connected, and my website navi-ventures.com. There's a lot of ways to access, so happy to connect.
Awesome. Here, all over the socials.
Yeah. Trying.
So, well, cool. Well, really appreciate your time today, and great to see you guys. Great to see you again, and
Yeah, of
yeah, appreciate everything. Have a great day. Thank you.
course. All right,
See ya.
bye.